All right, everyone. Welcome to another Fireside Chat. We're called Navigating Your Voice. We'll be talking about navigating your voice. We'll be talking about navigating your career through your voice, navigating yourself through your voice. A lot of voice navigation. With us here today / tonight, we have Jonathan Tay and Tamar Greene. Jonathan Tay is a Singapore-based opera singer and co-founder of Singapore's The Opera People, which is a collective of multidisciplinary performers and innovative industry professionals aiming to bring opera to wider audiences through creative uses of technology, accessibility, and relevance. And in addition to performing and leading, sorry, I just scrolled way far out of my script. In addition to performing and leading such communities, he's also a vocal teacher whose students have gone on to receive recognition and awards in the ABR-SM singing examinations and entry into leading music schools around the world. Renowned performer, great teacher, and a community builder. Jonathan Tay, thank you for joining us today / tonight.
Thanks, Justin. Glad to be here.
And Tamar Greene is the current George Washington in the world-renowned Broadway company of Hamilton. Prior to this, he was also George Washington, Chicago's Hamilton, and has performed on stages across America and worldwide, from musicals to leading wedding bands, and has his music available on all streaming platforms, and has even had something on Netflix. Tamar is also an accomplished voice teacher, leading a robust studio, and frequently presenting masterclasses and guest lectures around the country. He's also an active leader in social and racial justice, as one of 2 representatives from the Broadway company nominated to serve on what is now Ham for Progress, formerly Hamilton Racial Justice Task Force, through which he's helped organize company-wide efforts to raise census awareness, increase national voter registration, and amplify the importance of financially investing in communities of color. So thank you, Tamar, for joining us as well.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So there's a lot of places we can go into. I think the most logical place would be to get a little bit into y'all's backgrounds and figure out y'all's origin stories. Tamar, if you could start, I'm curious, when did you first start feeling like voice was the path for you? Was it always something known to you, or was there a certain memory or incident where you felt the recognition of it?
Yeah, no, I'm like, how much time do you have? I was not a singer when I was younger, not at all. Very, very shy kid. I mean, my worst nightmare would have been to stand in front of people and open my mouth. So, no, I did not. It was not something from when I was super young. I'm a pianist first, actually. Classical piano was my love. I come from a big family, and we all had to pick up an instrument of some sort. And I always joke that I chose the piano because it was the biggest instrument that I could hide behind. But so that was my love. You're actually sitting on my piano right now, actually. But that's my love. Yeah. So I was like classical piano, I did competitions, all that kind of stuff growing up, and then again, because we're such a big family, I think my father just wanted to push us out of the house as much as possible, and he dropped me into a choir when I was a teen, early teen, maybe preteen actually, and I originally hated him for that. Like, why are you doing this to me? But I did it, you know, for better or worse. I learned a little bit about singing and what it's like to blend with other folks and all that. I learned a lot about music. The other side of music, classical and pianistic music. Then I went to high school. I went to a School of the Arts high school in New York, and in Rochester, New York. And I I was auditioning for piano, to get in there for piano, and I had my audition. It was going well, everything's good, and then the teacher, another colleague of the piano teacher there asked me, or asked another colleague to come in, and she came in and she asked me to sing something. And I was like, why? I'm like, I'm a little offended actually, because I think my Beethoven was excellent just now. But no, I begrudgingly sang a little something for her, and she was kind of the first a first moment for me as far as recognizing what it meant to be a solo singer. And she took me under her wing throughout high school, and I did, several different events. I was in her choir, and she really was that change for me. And then when it came time to go to college, I once again was like, yeah, I'm just a pianist. That was a fun little whatever, but I am a pianist. And another degree we can talk about later, but I added another degree. And then in college, I had a similar experience. I'm playing the piano, I'm studying piano, and they're like, great, this is cool. What else do you do? And I'm like, that's it. And I'm like, I think you check out the singer down the hall. So then that was when it happened to me again in college. I was like, okay, this is a sign that I should probably actually take this singing thing a little bit more seriously. And so I did. And that's kind of that was the true light bulb. One was planted the seed in high school, and then the real life light bulb was that college experience. And then I went to Eastman and got my master's in vocal performance, and yeah, that's the beginning of when they push you out and tell you to be an adult.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, so the significant switch was during college, and you were
Yeah, I was okay. So I was basically intrigued by the vocal thing. That's the way I can really generalize it. I was really intrigued by vocal things happening in the music department. And so I inquired about what it would mean to get more involved. And in doing that, I ended up auditioning to be a voice major as well, basically. And then that teacher said similar things that my high school teacher said, and did similar things that she did. And he took me under his wing and was like, yeah, let's do this. There's a voice in here. Let's work that out. So I hustled, and I majored in both piano, voice, and the other thing I didn't mention was computer information systems.
okay. Yeah, why not? I just toss that in there.
Right, just toss it in there. So yeah, that was my bachelor's degree.
Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, it sounds like singing was it pulled you in, kind of like it was less. Yeah, it was less on your own initiative and more like people were recognizing it in you.
In the beginning, absolutely, yeah. People definitely. I can only say that my mentors changed my life. Really, they really guided me and pushed me in ways I didn't see myself. I didn't think there was a voice in there. My mom sang actually, so like I knew that there's something in the family, I suppose. But I definitely didn't, especially with stage fright that I had. I'm like, I was much less than interested. I'll say that. Pursuing that, but that's been something that's been a very interesting journey to conquer, and about the whatever psychology of it all. But yeah, that's what I ended up falling in love with. I'm like, great, let's use this voice. Let's see what's in here.
Wow. Okay, I definitely want to get more into that.
Yeah, we could definitely get more.
And then Jonathan, same question to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, my story is not too dissimilar from Tamar's, except that I always kind of loved singing. I didn't know there was such a thing as singing lessons really when I was younger, so I did take piano as well. I'm terrible at piano, although I kind of have to use it for teaching these days. But I did start as a pianist in the secondary school, which is like kind of middle school. But then I had a first taste of the stage. I think back, like a real taste of the stage. I think I was 13, and the touring company of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat came to Singapore, and they were looking for chorus members, and somehow I got in. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is fun. You know, all these, I think it was the Australian cast, Australian touring company. And then, you know, we had a pretty great time with these, you know, real professional singers in the old Kallang Theater that's now kind of, I think, defunct. But then on, you know, in Singapore, unlike the States, at least, you know, a lot of the major cities in the States, you don't really think about a career in music. It's not really a thing back then. You don't really think about that. I went on to do a diploma in law, thinking that would be my path. But when I was in the school, kind of like my high school type of situation, I started a rock band. I joined a singing group and took over it, sang in a couple of concerts for the school. And my lecturers were like, John, do us a favor and don't go do law. Go and do something you really want to do, you know? And I was like, really? I think it also helps that I have a twin who's also part of the opera people. He's also a tenor like me, an opera singer. He lives in New York, actually. He went first. So he always knew somehow that singing was his thing. So he went first. I always remember calling him, you know, how's it in New York? How's it going? And he's like, you know, you should really come and try it out. You should come and audition because you're better than some of these kids here. I'm like, really? Me? I sing in a rock band. I don't know what you're talking about. So I went to the States on a holiday and sang for his teacher. And that was it. He was like, you know, if send your application and I'll teach you. So I went, and I only applied. This is how much faith I had. I applied for one school, the Manhattan School of Music. That's all. And to kind of give myself a way out, I also applied to the music business in New York University because I thought, you know, I study law and then I like music. Let's just, you know, I'll be my brother's agent or something. But I didn't even get in. So my teacher was like, you know, if you want to know about the business of music, be in the business of music. You know, I'm like, okay, I guess it makes sense. So then that was it. So it was a Singaporean kid. I wasn't really a kid, actually. I was really 23 when I went over there. Because, you know, in Singapore, you have to do the army, 2 years of military service. And, you know, another side, in the military service, I broke my back and I ended up in the music band. I didn't break my back literally, but, you know, I injured my spine. So they were like, you can't be a soldier anymore. So I joined the music band and I took over the a cappella group. You know, I was singing jazz standards for my military service. So I was like, you know, I think that's the sign. I think I should do this. I had no idea what I was getting into. And then when I went to New York, and learn from some pretty life-changing people that you meet there, and that was it.
Interesting. So you guys both were kind of just pulled into it. Like it sounds like there was kind of.
Yeah, it's just really funny. I'm like, there are parts of your story that I didn't mention in parts of my story. And I'm like, that's really funny that you had a rock band, I had a funk band. I was singing. That's really funny. I also applied to Manhattan School. I applied to 2 schools. That's how confident I was. I applied you did 1, but I did 2. That's it, Manhattan School of Music.
You're a little bit more confident than I was.
just that much. That's so funny. Yeah, I never did an a cappella group. Yeah, that's really
You too?
funny.
Yeah.
I wanted to get an a cappella, but I did not join an a cappella group myself. I always admired the a cappella group singers. It's tight. That's really funny. Yeah. So we both, like you said, Justin, yeah, we both, I guess we're led through the universe, I guess, through the, what you want to call it, to pursue our passions. That's great.
What was it like? So I want to kind of zoom in on the transition from not identifying as a singer to when you start really feeling like it. So you guys both had this external, like a series of external validations, I guess. There was the professors and the teachers that were asking of it. Jonathan, you had your twin, and also the teacher who heard your audition. And I'm wondering, like, was it a significant jump when you got that affirmation, or did it still take more events or experiences after that to really feel like you were a singer? Like, was there still a sense of that classic imposter syndrome after that? Do you still have it? Like, I'm curious about I'm curious about your relationship with imposter syndrome. And I'm curious about it starting from when you got that validation from the teachers, from the auditions.
This is to me or Jonathan? This is to Jonathan.
Tamar, you can start. I guess we can just keep going forward.
Sure. Yeah, definitely yes on the imposter syndrome. I think because, it's funny how little those like early years of your life actually are, but how important they are on solidifying your mentality of who you are. And that's where I have found struggle. I even to this day, like I feel like I would hesitate to lead with saying I'm a singer, and like I'm literally a singer on Broadway, like, so it's weird because in my mind I'm like, no, I'm a pianist, I just haven't practiced my Chopin in a while, but I am I'm a pianist. So that definitely happens a lot. That I think the first time or the heaviest time I felt that, probably the heaviest time I felt that was when I got into Eastman. I didn't know, well, first of all, because I wasn't in the world, I didn't even know the value of Eastman as much. I was just guided there again through my other undergrad teacher. And he really was like, you should study with this woman. And he truly was informing me of all the world. And so I applied and I had a lesson and whatever, I did the thing. And then when I finally got in, I think it hit me. Like literally when I walked in the doors, like the first day, I was seeing, kids or whatever, folks who were younger than me, in the undergrad program, who were like in the hallways speaking French. And I was like, what am I doing here? I was like, at that moment, I was like, I don't know anything about French. I had no idea what's going on. And here I am in the master's program at Eastman School of Music. And I don't, I haven't had any of these languages really, like, whatever I not studied, but I would sing, like the Requiem or something in high school, but that's Latin. And, I didn't know. So like, I had many moments in the at Eastman where I was like, what am I doing here? These people, I'm like older than them, and should be more knowledgeable of this field than them, and I am clearly not. So I felt from that moment and even on, I always felt like I was playing catch up to be on the same level as my peers. So that's the, and again, like I said, like even to this day, there are moments of that. I'm much more confident now, but there are moments where the things trigger me. Like I'm on Broadway, and some people have been wanting this since they were 5, 6 years old, and I'm like, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. There are a lot of musicals that I've still not even seen. Like I saw Music Man for the first time like a couple months ago, and people are like, "What? The classic Music Man? You don't know?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I don't know it." And so I like would have moments of cramming as much as possible. Like when I first got to the city, I would like go to the Lincoln Center and like watch as many shows as I could for free, because I don't know if you know, you can watch Broadway shows in the library at the Lincoln Center. So I would like cram and watch shows and watch Carousel and watch all these other things, because I didn't want to be less than, I didn't want to, I wanted to be informed. I'm like, how can I be out here and be teaching and stuff and still feel like I'm still trying to catch up to certain people? So that imposter syndrome is real. That imposter syndrome is definitely real, because I spent so many years saying I am a pianist who sometimes sings, which is not true. I mean, I'm a singer and a pianist.
So it sounds like a lot of the imposter syndrome, as far as you've explained, came less from your voice quality and more about the story or the investment that the people around you had put into the voice. Is that?
Yeah, I'd definitely probably say that. Like it was less, it was never me assessing my own instrument necessarily for me. I mean, there were definitely times I'm like, why is this B flat not clear as that person's? But heavily it was like just fundamentally, what's going on? What am I doing? It's all me. It wasn't necessarily the other people. It's all my demons talking, loudly. But yeah, so it definitely wasn't, it mostly wasn't skill based. In the beginning, it was probably skill based, but
Right.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. That it's interesting that there's like an implicit deservingness, like an implicit unconscious set of like prerequisites to deserve to be a singer that were being felt when you were comparing yourself to your peers, and it didn't have to do with the instrument. I find that pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that was the major thing for me. But I can't go further into like, voice type, for example. Like Jonathan's a tenor, he said, right? But then like I at one point thought I was a baritone before I had real training. Like when I was in high school, I was a baritone. But then I got to Eastman, and then like, or no, I got to my undergrad, and he said, "No, you're a tenor." I'm like, "What? What is that?" Okay, and so then I tried to figure out what that meant, and then I learned about Fox and like what all different kinds of tenors, and then being I didn't know what it was at the time, being a different voice than a lot of my peers who were definitely clearly tenors. I was like, why can't I do that? Why can't I, bust out an mes amis and like be fine? My voice, what am I doing wrong? You know what I mean? And so that's definitely a valid thing that also happened when I get more, specific on the micro issues. I'm like, why? What's going on? Then I realized, I'm more like a, Verdi, dramatic tenor or whatever. Like it's a whole different kind of tenor. And that's just not my ministry, I guess. I love a mes amis. I will never be singing that in its original key. So, anyway, that's that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jonathan, what about you? How are your?
It's really interesting because hearing Tamar talk, there's just so many parallels all over the place, and awesome. It's so funny because I think I think too, especially for our listeners here, wondering about how do you even know? And that's the thing. I think in the beginning, you don't even know what it really means. You have no idea. And when I arrived in New York, it was so consuming. Manhattan School of Music has hundreds of singers every year coming in. and you're just one of these individuals. And similar to Tamar, when I arrived in New York, I was 23, so I was 5 years older than all the American kids. And I see these sopranos bust out Caro Nome, and I've never heard it. I'm like, that's so beautiful. How did you even do that? I know Mio Babino Caro, and that's about it. I know nothing. I know all the the last 7 albums by John Bon Jovi, but that doesn't apply here. I can sing some Guns N' Roses, but that's I can't. What's a lead, you said? Leader? Okay. Melody? Okay. So you just kind of learn. But I think with the I felt like super behind, just like Tamar did, or even though I didn't even have a piano degree to fall back on. I was just a pretender, but but you work. I think the key thing is thinking back. I think I was a bit old. Being a bit older helped because I was a bit more mature. My 17, 18 drink till you drop days were done in Singapore. So I wasn't that. I mean, I did go to some parties, but I was a bit more serious, I guess, than some of my other friends or colleagues or classmates. Of course, there were those, that I remember this girl. I guess I don't need to say her name, but she's singing in the big houses in Vienna now. She came in, and from that moment she opened her mouth, you knew she was something special, and she was gonna go far. She didn't even get a master's. She didn't have time. After undergrad, she went straight to Wolf Trap and blah blah blah, Houston Grand, blah blah blah, Vienna Staatsoper. She did the whole thing, and I just had to realize eventually that was not going to be my path. I also watched some other little Spanish guy or giant Korean dude bust out a Mes-Amis, and I was like, okay, good job, bro. Good job, bro. when are you gonna work for me? But you just kind of slowly get a hang of what you're good at. I think it was only in my master's when I worked with my teacher there. It was Professor Stephen Smith, and he did a lot of good work with me, I think. And even my opera director told me, quite honestly, when I first came in, he was like, I didn't know how to use you. But in the second year, he gave me everything, every lead role. And I was like, okay, I think I see something happening. I see, it's finally working. Not even like, oh, I'm about to sing in a Met. It's just, it's at least I can sing something that I think I should be able to sing now. I think that I'm fine. This might actually become something that I can work with. And sometimes that's your journey. When I was finishing my master's, I was coming to 29. My teacher Steve told me, he's like, you look at all your friends, they apply into the young artist programs and all that. That's not going to be you. You just have to find your own way. And I did. I tried the audition circuit for a year, and I actually got a apprenticeship job right out of master's, which was nice. I was taught how the real world works, which is they ain't no coaches, they ain't no hand holding. You show up and you do your thing. And I was crazy enough to overbook myself. I think I had another concert in New Mexico when I was singing a couple of small roles there and covering a lead role. So it was, but it was a nice kind of journey. But then it didn't really, nothing really happened after that, and I figured out that the universe was calling me home. That I was already singing a bunch of operas every year, I would fly back to Singapore every summer. So instead of investing my time in like trying to go to a summer program in the States, most of the time I would go back to Singapore and sing in a young opera company that I helped start, because I knew that, you know, I was kind of plowing the land to kind of figure out what would happen if I would go home, because, you know, there was hardly any opera in Singapore. There was probably one opera a year done by the big company, and they would always hire some unknown singer from Europe, some operalia winner from 10 years ago, you know, something like that. So they would hardly hire any Singaporean singers because there weren't really many when I was growing up. And my first opera that I watched live, not a DVD, but like live, was at the Met. I didn't even watch the ones in Singapore. So there was, I think we're going off to a different topic right now, but I think that was when I decided, you know, why struggle here in New York City where there are so many good singers. I think the reality hit when I went for an audition, and I met so many old schoolmates from Manhattan. They were finishing their masters when I was in undergrad. You know, you would think these guys would be further along in their career now, but here they are doing the same auditions, you know, with me. I'm just out of school, out of masters, and doing the same auditions for a role that's going to pay you $50 to do. You know, I was like, what's going on here? Whereas if I go back to Singapore and work on a career there, everything I do makes an impact. You know, whenever I sing on stage, a Singaporean kid that likes singing or likes opera is going to look at the program like, oh my God, that guy's a Singaporean. And he's singing this here. You know, that's never happened in the 20 years since opera started before I came back to Singapore. You know, I think it's much different than like, even if I sing one opera a year in the States, it's nothing. It's a drop in the ocean, you know, compared to what I can do coming back to Singapore.
Okay, that kind of segues into the topic that's been floating around for me now, which is, so we've had kind of we've gone into kind of the insecurity, the imposter syndrome stuff, and I'm sure there's inspiration, and there's faith and hope created by the validation of your teachers. I'm starting to become curious about like how much did I'm curious about the role of representation at this stage that we're talking about in y'all's careers, because Jonathan, it sounds like you didn't really have examples of what you're creating in Singapore.
Yeah, not really. I think, like I said, you know, growing up, if you like, I think it was, I didn't even watch any opera in Singapore, and there were hardly any local singers. And I remember when I came back, there was a tenor that was, you know, about maybe 10 years older than I am. He's passed away now, but he was probably the best tenor in Singapore when I was about to say before I came back, but he was before he passed away, I guess. He was, you know, fantastic singer. He was in Juilliard. He worked with Steve, and he worked with Marilyn Horne. She loved him. He was great. But the only role he sang in Singapore was the Emperor in Turandot. If you know the opera, that's nothing. That's a couple measly lines, you know, probably seated on the throne right like 10 meters, you know, the back of the set. So there was nothing. So, you know, you don't really think about opera as a career. Like I said, you don't even consider it. So I think right now it's different where you know, there are a bunch of singers here now that at least we can consider ourselves professional, that young singers in schools or whatever, like our students can look at and say, you know, in Singapore, I think in the previous years, maybe there will be some teachers from abroad, like from China or Taiwan or Korea or somebody, so that that either sang a little bit or pretended to sing a little bit, and came to Singapore and started a studio and was teaching singing to enthusiasts. And that's great, you know, that's a career in itself. But you never saw them on the big stages. You never saw them. You didn't know what to believe. You didn't know if it was possible. You work so hard and you would think, what for? You know, to sing in a birthday party, like to impress my friends that I can sing an opera aria that nobody knows what an opera aria is anyway. You know, so I think it was quite special to start something, be at least the start of the wave of singers that started coming back and creating something, a local scene here.
Gotcha. Okay. And actually, I do want to jump back a little bit, because I guess you could say you started with rock in high school. What is it? Did you always also have an appreciation of opera, or were there a series of examples or performances that you saw that clicked you into that?
I think opera was kind of, or classical voice, should say, was kind of dropped on me in high school, because I was a music student and you had to have an instrument, and they didn't offer voice as an option. So I was a fake pianist. Talk about imposter syndrome. I was fully an imposter at that time. I was pretending to play the piano. And then they were like, you know, you need a second instrument now. So do you want to learn the cello, the double bass, the trombone, maybe? I'm like, I don't even want to practice piano. I just want to play football. Why do I want another trombone or cello? So like, you're like, can I sing? I'm in the choir. And again, I was tricked into joining the choir, because I joined the Joseph production, but all the kids that joined the Joseph production was shoved into the school choir as well. And then they got us a teacher, and we started learning, you know, the 24 Italian art songs, the Schubert Leader, whatever, and that's where it kind of started. But I carried on voice lessons after that, so that I could sing my rock better. So I could yell those high notes a bit longer. But I think later, especially when I went to New York, I think that's where I really fell in love with the art form, because you see it at the highest level, and you're like, oh my, that's amazing, and you just get completely in awe of what you're looking at live. I mean, I watched DVDs, but that's very different from the real thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Tamara, what about you? How's the representation for you? Because forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've seen a lot of, well, I guess I'm not really interested in the musical scene, but I'm curious if you had a lot of people you were looking up to in the musical scene, or the genres that you were getting into, that you could relate to.
Yeah, you know, well, first of all, Jonathan, I love what you've done. I loved hearing your story and how bringing your art form back to Singapore. I think that's really important and admirable, really. That's really amazing. Because that representation really is important. It's important for kids to see themselves and see what they can become. You know, I can't remember what there was like this example someone gave. I was in a lecture or something, and somebody gave this example of, like, you know, closing your eyes and told this whole story about, like, you know, like, okay, so this happened. It was the patient, and then there was a doctor, and they had this conversation, and, you know, the subject matter didn't matter, but in the end, they asked the people, be honest, what did the doctor look like? And the majority of people were like, it was a white man. You know, and it's because that's what we see most of the time, is that like white men are doctors. But like, we all know that there's so many more. There are many doctors of many different backgrounds, and the Asian and the Black and whatever. Like, there's just so many other, you know. But that's the image we see all the time. So that's why it's important to see to see Black doctors on TV, to see Singaporean or Japanese or whatever, like seeing people who look like us, so we can see what we can be, to see what we can be. So, growing up, I didn't see or know about opera. I was a classical pianist, but I gratefully was in the School of the Arts, and got to know more of this genre of music, but my dad, my parents are musicians. My mom plays piano, and she sings, and my dad is a reggae DJ, old school reggae DJ, vinyl records and stuff. And, so music was always around, but I still never really knew anything about like classical music. And there is a market. There are lots of Black. I didn't know who Marian Anderson was, like that she, like the first Black opera singer, I believe, at the Met, at least female Black opera singer. I didn't know, even like more modern, I didn't know Lawrence Brownlee was, maybe at the time I was in school, maybe he wasn't as big at that time, but like there's so many artists I didn't know about. And I remember going to Eastman and my brother asking me, and I'm at Eastman, this is my master's program, and my brother asking me, like, do Black people do opera? And I remember that question because it hit me, because I was like, well, I'm doing opera and I'm Black, so, like I remember having that feeling, but I sat with that for years, actually, his voice in my head, like, he doesn't know. And honestly, I don't really know. So I have to make it my mission to always learn more and research and see who's out there, who's already been killing it and just not getting their praise. And then to make sure I'm enlightening the people so I can make change and be the change for the people younger than me who might be looking at me. And that's why I always talk about the representation, the importance of that representation. You have to always, reach back, but also, give that credit to the people who've done the work, who've already been giving their blood, sweat, and tears for years, and been fighting against, oppressions of all sorts, or just not have it. There's even like, I go back and look at the things like Gershwin's done, for example, and I see like even Gershwin has stolen, it's stolen from the culture, from Black culture, and I'm not African American, but I'm Jamaican, but I don't know, we didn't talk about that. I'm a first generation American. My father's born in Jamaica. My mom was born in England, by way of Jamaica. So I'm, even my culture is different than like the African American culture in America. But that Black representation is truly important. So yeah, I had to dive in a little bit late and figure out like, wow, Leontine Price, how did I miss that? Jesse Norman, Kathleen Battle, how in the world has nobody shown me this? Even while going to Eastman, people were not really showing me that. They all showed me the three tenors, which is great. I really looked up to Domingo because he was a baritone as well, and then transitioned and all that. So I looked up to that. But like, why haven't I been shown these other great artists who happen to be Black? So yeah, so I guess the specific question, I believe, was related to who was my, my symbol, representation. I didn't really have one. I stumbled into the opera world where I, shouldn't have been, really, based on my upbringing. Even to this day, people who grow up with it are like, how? Like, I'm the only one in my family who's like, opera? What is this? Why are you doing this? I'm like, I don't know. I like it. I have no idea, and of course now my career is taking a turn and, not in opera anymore, but still that level of excellence wasn't really shown to me in my upbringing, but like Jonathan, like, yeah, the rock artists and pop artists and stuff like that, I wanted to be Luther Vandross or something when I first was like, what is singing? Okay, I'm gonna be
I love Luther Vandross. I love him so much.
Me too. His range is ridiculous. His songs, his skills and the tools he has to his voice, that's ridiculous. So yeah.
Well, Tamar, you'll be happy to know in 2018 when the Singapore Symphony Orchestra brought in a cast of overseas singers to sing La Boheme. The Mimi was Angel Blue. She
Oh,
was
yeah.
she was
Oh,
fantastic. I was Sparpinel, so I got to meet her, and we had a nice time together, and
yeah.
and even the Musetta was this soprano called Kelly Bourgueil. She's from Africa. I think she's from Cameroon
Okay.
or something. So
Okay.
that's fantastic.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. Yeah, we're going to talk more. I'm really all about what you're doing down there. What you're doing over there. That's great.
We have about 15 minutes left, a little less than that. I did want to get to some of the more specific audience questions, just because they did ask some, and they are pretty technical. And I guess both of you guys being such experienced teachers could be a nice bonus for them to get some of this advice. The questions are in the chat. The first one is pretty big. How do you appreciate your voice for what it is? And I'm curious from y'all's teaching experience, if with any of these questions, if you feel a sense of like what's the question underneath, because I'm sure you've had these experiences with these questions before. Like what comes up for you, and how do you address these? So Tamar, you can start.
How do you appreciate your voice for what it is? Sounds like, how do I not compare myself to other people's voices? That's kind of what that sparks for me. And I feel that question. I feel both of these questions, obviously. But I would have to say, I didn't really, I struggled with this myself, like, well, how do I appreciate mine? Because I didn't grow up a singer. So I'm like, this is what people like. This is what it is. Is that, I don't know. Is this okay? I don't know what's going on here. I listen to recordings. I'm like, what's going on? The first thing is, you never know what we speak all the time, but we don't actually know what our voice sounds like, unless you record it and play it back to. But we all notice that, like, when you play it back, it's like, that's not what I sound. That's not what I think I sound like, because I hear myself speak all the time. But you can't accurately hear yourself, right? So you have to just like trust that your voice is, it is what it is. You were given this gift of this voice. You have to embrace it. That's all you got. I mean, that's not all you got, but I mean, like, that's the voice you were given. So you can't try and compare yourself like to timbres or qualities of other people, because that's whole different mechanism, the bone structure, how it resonates in your face, everything changes how your voice sounds. So your body is completely different from the person next to you. There's nothing to compare to in a peer, because your voice is unique. It's unique as a snowflake. No, but yeah, that's how I'd answer that. Your voice is unique, and it is valid, and it is important.
So tell me about you.
I think it's that's a tricky question, and I always tell young singers not to worry about it, to find your own voice. I always tell them never to try and learn from recordings. I mean, it's good to listen and to inform yourself on what good singing sounds like or what repertoire sounds like. But really, you can only be the best version of yourself. If you're, you could be the best imitator of Pavarotti or Joan Sutherland or whoever your biggest idol is, but you still be just an imitation of it. You'll never be the real deal. So it's, I think that's the starting point. But I think I think in the journey of wanting to become a professional singer, if that's what you're thinking of using your voice for, it's also, I think when you start finding things that you can sing successfully, you're starting getting an idea of what your voice is used for. Like Tamar said, you don't really know what your voice sounds like. And I always tell my students, when I sing a successful performance, other people tell me it's successful. I didn't know that. I just know I did it, and other people tell me it was good. I'm like, oh, that was good. Okay, I'm gonna try to do similar things the next time. You know, it's you don't know, and if you do, you probably only singing for yourself. You know, you probably if you're really only listening, singing to enjoy that moment, then you can do it in the shower. I think you appreciate your voice for what it is. I think it's also it's a journey of discovery. You know, you may not like what you find, but just like Tamar said, that's what you got. And I think it's particularly tricky in this day when, you know, people tend to want to believe that they can be whatever they want to be. In a sense, that's true, but like if you know, there are limitations. You know, I'm not from, for example, I'm even if not a technical issue, I'm not from the culture. I wouldn't be able to sing Hamilton. No way. You know, I wouldn't like you ask Tamar to sing a Chinese opera. He'd be completely out of his depth. So it's also a limitation to what is all inbuilt, not just here, but here, and your whole body. You know, like I think in 2017, I sang a Wagner opera. Some baby Wagnerians came from Germany to sing the lead roles, and they were about 2 stories high. You know, we used looking at them come out of the cab was like, is this real? is this a real? Is my eyes playing tricks on me? You know, if I think on stage, the bass was this tall and I was about this tall. It was something like that, and that's why they sing Wagner. You know, it's not there's so much bigger, and I think the sooner you embrace what you're built for and try your best to be the best version of yourself, the happier you will be.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, because there are, especially like when you're saying like you can do anything you want, but like if you were naturally given a more raspy voice, for example, like there are people out here who have a little bit more rasp, and it could come from maybe a vocal thing when they were babies and they got a certain, whatever it is, you know.
Too much crying.
Too much crying. Too much crying. But I had a girl who came to me and just like was so frustrated with her voice and the range, and I'm like, well, that's one thing is there's certain teachers who are like, you are a soprano, this should be your range, and if you're not doing it, you're doing things wrong, you know, and that's not fair, you know. As we know in the opera field, there are a lot of different, you know, Fox and different voice types, even beyond the one category. But sometimes pop teachers will teach like, you're a soprano, why aren't you hitting these things? And it's like, well, it's because not every soprano's built the same. Not every tenor is built the same, you know. And so I had this girl and her range was very small. But I'm like, but what can you do? So you can't hit that high note. Sure, okay, great. So maybe that's not it for you. But let's embrace what you can do. You know, and then we started working on jazz songs and jazz standards and things like that. And like, that's it. That was like the thing she can do so special that no one else can do, you know, as well. I mean, you can sing it, but can't do it as well. So like, I'm always here for like finding what you are the greatest at, do that, exploit that, if you will. And, but also push the boundaries for things you maybe don't traditionally look like you can do. Like I will say that our Aaron Burr right now is a Korean man, Jin Ha, and our covers, the cover from Hamilton is Filipino, and we have another Chinese American who's another cover of Hamilton as well. So like, you know, that doesn't necessarily, you know, you can break those boundaries. There's a lot of different representation going on Broadway, but so you always push the boundaries for what your mind would traditionally say you can and can't do. But definitely, like, you would be much happier when you find your thing, exploit that thing. It's great. Like me, I have like a big, like my A flat, so like my money note, right? G, A flat, where I'm there. I'm like, I do that as a belt in a big way that not a lot of people can do. My B flat is not going to be as floaty and ringy as, you know, as many other people, you know, so I might stay away from that sometime, but I'm going to go for it. I'm going to practice and, you know, do it when a job requires me to do so. But I know that no one can sound like I do in those money note areas, you know. So I'm like, I'm doing those for an audition. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to book the job every time, you know. So it's definitely important to know your strengths and know your weaknesses. Just you know, not to judge those things. Just know them so you can move about life, you know, knowing yourself.
I think I always tell students these about these three kind of things that that they can think about. One is what they can do at that current moment in time. Second one is what they enjoy doing. You know, maybe they really love stretch simmer, but they can't really get their head around it. And then the last one is, what are other people asking you to do? What do people want you to do? You know, I think if you can find the sweet spot, that's all these three things, that's definitely what you should be chasing. But if, you know, sometimes things fall out here and there, but if it's just purely what you like to do, then nobody's asking you to do it and you can't really do it. Maybe that's not what you should be doing. You know, like I love singing rock, but I never got a I never really got that going, you know. So I can't really do it anymore. But you know, I think that's and what Tamar says is also I like that, and I mean, I'm all for pushing boundaries. I think in 2018 it was, I just went for an audition as like a long shot, and I got cast as a lead in Chinese opera. And I'm not good at Chinese. I am Chinese, but I'm not good at it. And singing in a style and in a way that it's completely foreign to me, you know, there was a big learning lesson, but I treasure that experience so much, you know, because opera sound is like, you know, it's just overwhelming. But the Chinese opera singer's voice is like super, you know, needle pinpoint. And when I sang with her, who was like my love interest, I was like a cushion and she was the pin. So I needed to really change my voice, even the way that I'm used to singing, to match her, because she's the star. But yeah, to kind of like make it work. And you learn from these experiences. I'm not then gonna go on to China and suddenly become a Chinese opera singer. That's not my thing. But you know, you push yourself to learn and experience new things. And now I can say I've done it before, so maybe I can do it again. There's not always, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel I did something similar with I did a Monteverdi opera. It was like a new spin on an old Monteverdi opera, but I was like, I did the gig, but I was like, that's not me. That's not me. That's not. I was like, my voice doesn't move like that very well. I'm very happy I did it and learned how I could do it a little bit, but that's not I don't have any business doing that. Wrong Verdi. Wrong Verdi.
Yeah, I remember bringing Handel to my coach in Chicago, because I knew I was bad at early music. So I even went to push myself to go take a ornamentation class. I was completely clueless, but I did it, and then I took this to a coach, and you know, we did what, you know, he said. He wanted me to try all these ornaments, all these whatever. I did them, and he's like, "That was really good, Jonathan, but I don't think anybody's gonna hire you to sing Handel." I'm like, okay,
all right,
I accept that. I just did my first Handel role last year. I produced that show myself. I don't know why. I was hoping a tenor that has a Handel, you know, tattooed on his shoulder would come and audition, but that guy never arrived, so I had to do it myself. And it was my 29th role, I think. It took me 29 roles to get to Handel, and 30 roles to get to Puccini. But you know, you never know what. And 31 is what I'm doing now, is Rossini, like my first actual professional Rossini gig, and I'm terrified, but you know, this is what it is. You just keep going.
I think that's probably a good place to end, because we're out of time. But I do feel like the way that you guys answer this question does apply to all of them, which seems to me like something like be willing to take risks and fall on your face, like experiment. Because that's what it sounds like you guys did a lot. There's a lot of just trying things, failing, doesn't work out, but also this kind of does. I don't have a role model here, but it turns out I can become that role model. It sounds like there was just like a willingness to try. And I think that theme must have been a pretty significant factor in where you guys are at now. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I learned so much. And yeah, that's it. That's our fireside chat.
Excellent. All right. Well, good. Nice to see you all. Nice to meet you, Jonathan.
Nice to meet you, Tamar.
Yeah, I look forward to checking out your Rossini.
And now I can tell everyone I had a chat with the Hamilton of Broadway. That's a big deal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, y'all. Well, have a good day. I'm going to prepare for my show tonight.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Good night.